Hi guys, I want to talk to you about recovery runs. Now I know recovery runs are not the most exotic, they're not the most exciting part of our running life. And I'm sure many of you just don't like to do recovery runs. When you get out there, you want to run fast. You want to feel like you're putting in an effort. But I came across an article in Canadian Running titled, "What is the purpose of recovery runs?" And I thought it was good enough for me to share with you, because it turns out they're pretty important. Now, perhaps some of you already know that. Perhaps some of you have already got the benefits from going out and running easy, running a recovery run. Perhaps some of you just don't like to run slow. You want to go out, you want to push the envelope every day. But the article starts out by saying that recovery runs are perhaps one of the most misunderstood parts of running. Oh, and this is also the weekly running and training vlog, where I want you to tell me about your week of running. I want to hear about successes and definitely want to hear about those setbacks. And because we are talking about recovery runs, let me know what you think a recovery run is and how many you include in your week. Is it the type of run that you do on a regular basis? Let me know in the comments. So the article says that a lot of people think of recovery runs as junk miles. And I do have a video on the channel way back in the day about junk miles, and junk miles really isn't a term that I like to use. Don't really agree with it. Basically, we have unstructured miles where your runs might not be serving a specific purpose if you're in a training program. But I maintain that no miles are junk miles, and recovery miles are certainly not junk miles. But here's the thing, and here's something that I want you to remember. Recovery miles will make you fitter and they will make you faster. So here's the thing that I found interesting. And when you hear it, you're gonna think, well, yeah, that makes sense. I knew that. So recovery runs are not for recovery. And you probably think of a recovery run in terms of things that we have read hundreds of times if you read a lot of running stuff. These recovery runs get the blood flowing. Perhaps they clear lactic acid and all the other waste products that have built up from your hard workouts. Those runs where you are really putting in a solid effort. But here's the thing, that's not true at all. In fact, we know that even after the hardest workouts, the workouts when you go out and you just crush it, it usually doesn't take more than an hour for the lactic acid levels to return to normal. And we also know, despite what you will continually hear, that lactic acid isn't the cause of fatigue. In fact, lactic acid is a fuel. And moreover, when you've been doing a hard workout, when you've been running intervals, perhaps you've been to the gym, you've had a big leg day, you've heard that those workouts produce little micro tears. And then as your body heals, your muscles grow stronger. Well, a recovery run doesn't actually promote that healing. A recovery run isn't healing those little micro tears. So it's not really a recovery run at all. But there's still a lot of benefits that come with recovery runs. And here are 5 of them. Number 1, recovery runs improve your fitness. Now that may sound a little counterintuitive, especially because you certainly don't finish a recovery run feeling as good as you do after a solid tempo effort. But here's the thing, your recovery runs benefit you because they come at the point after your body is already fatigued. And that's when the biggest adaptations happen. By doing a recovery run after you've done a hard workout, you are challenging your body to push past the point of fatigue. That's why you usually do a recovery run within 24 hours after a hard effort or a long run. So these easy recovery runs where your heart rate isn't getting very high, you are forcing your body to adapt without pushing it to the breaking point because you're running so slow. Number 2, recovery runs help you improve your form. Okay, actually this isn't true exactly, because as we all know, running form isn't as easy to perfect when you're running slow. But here's the thing, when you're not trying to hit a certain pace, you can actually focus more on your running form. You don't have to do it the whole time. You can get these benefits in short little segments. So perhaps for 1 minute of your run, you could think about your leg turnover. Perhaps for another minute after you've had a couple of minutes break, you could think about your arm carriage. Once you have a break for a few minutes of running easy, perhaps you could think about your breathing. Perhaps you could think about your posture. Perhaps you could think about how your feet are hitting the ground. There are so many things that you can focus on a recovery run because you're not thinking about the other things. Like wondering if you can hang on to this pace because your heart rate is going through the roof. All those painful things that come with workouts, they all get pushed aside and you get to focus on other things like form. Number 3, recovery runs help you increase your weekly mileage. And here's why that's important. Well, it might not be important to everyone, but if you are trying to be a better runner, the best way that you can be a better runner is by running more. Now, of course, there is an upper limit, but the rule of specificity holds true with running. So let me just give you an example, because there was a study done by Strava. Well, it wasn't really a study. It was more like a compilation of all the data from runners that have run the Boston Marathon. And they found that male Boston Marathon participants run on average 5.3 days a week. Women Boston Marathon participants run on average 4.9 days per week. While training for the Boston Marathon, male participants average 41 miles a week and women average 35.6 miles per week. Now I only give you these numbers because some of you may be trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon, and maybe if you're not hitting those weekly numbers, that is something that you can build up to and work towards. And the safest way to build your mileage is by doing the majority of your mileage at an easy pace. a recovery pace. The fourth benefit that recovery runs will give you is that they improve your body's ability to burn fat. But as you know, we all have pretty much an unlimited supply of fat to fuel us. But in order to use fuel as fat, we need oxygen. And when you're running at an easy pace, when you're running at that recovery pace, your breathing is pretty easy too, and that is allowing your body to take in enough oxygen. You are running aerobically, and this lets you use fat as an energy source. Now, depending on what watch you are using for your runs, some of your watches may actually measure your energy source, and it will let you know when you're using carbs, when you're using fat, how much of each. And I want you to take a look, because you will see that on your easy runs, there's going to be like an even split, carbs and fat. But when you pick up the pace, that fat use just drops away and you're using all carbs when you're running fast. So over time, when you keep doing these recovery runs, your body will gradually become more efficient at using fat for fuel. And I'm sure you've heard being fat adapted being thrown around a lot. That's what you're doing by doing recovery runs. And the fifth reason that recovery runs are so important is that they actually improve your mental health. Generally speaking, you're not going to be stressed about going out for an easy run. You're not going to be stressed about hitting those paces, about having your heart rate high for such a long time. I know that I will never lose any sleep over an easy run, but when I have a long tempo effort, I'm sweating it the day before. Also, recovery runs are a great time to get together with friends and go out and you can just chat and while away the miles. It's a lot of fun, and that does a lot of good for your mental health. Now, this may seem silly, recovery runs may seem like an easy thing to do, but a lot of people make a lot of mistakes with recovery runs, me included. So you've heard me and a lot of other people say this, but for recovery runs, you need to be running slow. You need to be running at a conversational pace, and a conversational pace obviously is when you can have a conversation. I know it's obvious, but I have to tell you, because I have found myself running at a conversational pace, and could I really keep a conversation? Could I be talking like this while I'm on the run? Sometimes, yes. Other times, not so much. Now, this next run is a part of recovery runs that I think I struggle with the most, and that is the distance. Now, of course, we are all different. Your recovery run distance is going to be relative to the amount of miles that you run every single week. But you can't just go out and run 20 miles as a recovery run. Ideally, your recovery runs need to be short enough that they don't induce fatigue. When you are done with your recovery run, you need to feel good. You don't need to be tired from your run. I think that's a pretty good way to measure it. It's a run that does not induce fatigue. Another recovery run mistake that a lot of people might make, not really me because of where I live, is watching out for hills. If you're running up hills, you're probably going to be exerting a little too much effort. Definitely a lot more than if you were running on flat ground. Luckily for me, in this case, I don't have any hills around here. I have nothing but flat land. Of course, that comes back to bite me when I'm trying to train for a hilly race, but we're talking about recovery runs, so I'm golden there. Okay, that is recovery runs. Let me know if you have been doing them wrong. Let me know if you've been doing them right. Let me know how many times a week you do them. And actually, I had a pretty good week of running. This was my last full training week before the Boston Marathon. At least it's my biggest week before the Boston Marathon. And I started off on Monday with 11 miles, very easy. Maybe not recovery run level, but definitely easy. I was keeping my heart rate nice and low. And I mainly run easy on Mondays because on Tuesdays I have a workout. And last Tuesday I ran a total of 10.5 miles. I warmed up for 2 miles, then I did 3 2-mile intervals with 800 meters recovery in between. And then when all was said and done, I cooled down with another 1.5 miles. That left me feeling pretty good. But still, I was fatigued from that workout, so I took Wednesday off, which set me up beautifully for Thursday because I had another workout. Thursday's workout was 11.5 miles, warmed up for 1 mile, then I did 10 miles at tempo pace, and then I cooled down for half a mile. And my friends, if there is a tougher workout than a 10-mile tempo, I don't know what it is. That was pretty tough. I always feel pretty good after a long tempo effort. And on that run, I actually was testing the new Reebok Float Ride Energy X. And my initial review of those shoes will be out in just a few days. Okay, now because I have Boston coming up in just a few weeks, Friday was generally an easy run, but I did not take the advice that I just gave you in this video and actually did 32 of my CC hills. CC stands for Country Club, and hill is just a golf cart overpass. That's why I did it so many times. 32 times to be exact. Back and forth over. Definitely not easy, definitely not a recovery run, but I needed to get a little bit of elevation just to make myself feel good moving forward as I work towards the Boston Marathon. My taper starts next week, so now is the time to put in the work. So after I thought about my run on Friday, where I did 32 times back and forth, I decided that really wasn't enough elevation, and I had a long run scheduled for Saturday. So when Saturday rolled around and I knocked out a total of 20.5 miles, I also included in that long run 12 times over the Ringling Bridge. And that bridge is substantially bigger than the golf cart overpass that I did the day before. And I actually felt pretty good finishing that run. When I say pretty good, I felt pretty trashed. I wasn't running fast by any means, but the temperature was 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 24 Celsius, and the humidity was 96%, so it was a real toasty run. And that was my longest run of the week. And on Sunday was just a recovery run. I just went out for an easy couple of miles. I knocked out 7.36 miles, and the reason for the 7.36 is just to get my weekly distance up to 71 miles, which is about 114 14 kilometers. And with that marks the official end of this week and the official start of my taper. So yeah, pretty happy with how that week went. Guys, don't forget, I want to hear about your week of running. Let me know in the comments. Also, I know there was a boatload of races around the world last weekend. So if you ran in any of them, let me know in the comments. All right, my friends, be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.